The day I realized my family had a secret group chat without me, I knew Dad's will wasn't the only thing they'd rewritten. I'm Emma Reed, 30, a junior accountant who moved back to Ohio 3 years ago when Dad's lungs started failing. I handled oxygen tanks, hospital bills, and endless nights while my sister Rachel sent "thinking of you" texts from Chicago. When Dad passed, she arrived with a designer coat and big promises about keeping the family together. At the reading of the will, the lawyer's tone turned stiff. The farmhouse, the only thing Dad owned outright, was now under Rachel and Mark's names for easier maintenance. Rachel smiled like it was logistics, not betrayal. Dad wanted the house in capable hands, she said. Mine aren't? I asked. You've done enough, Em. You deserve freedom. Freedom. That word stung harder than any curse. I spent 3 years tethered to that house while she posted beach photos with inspirational quotes about gratitude. 2 days later, while cleaning the kitchen, my phone buzzed. A preview banner popped up, Family Plan 2.0. I didn't know that chat existed. She'll be out by June. We stage next week. Buyers ready to wire. I froze, dish towel in hand. My pulse drummed in my ears. I opened the thread before my better judgment could stop me. There they were, Rachel, Mark, and Elaine, my stepmother, sharing paint swatches, contractor numbers, and a checklist labeled "Before Listing." Mark wrote, "Wrong thread. Emma doesn't need details." Rachel replied, "Once she moves out, we close fast." The phone nearly slipped from my grip. I scrolled upward, screenshots of Dad's amended will, laughing emojis under a meme about guilt-tripped siblings, and a photo of the farmhouse front porch captioned, "Soon to be someone else's problem." Steam fogged the window above the sink. Dad's old boots sat by the door, same place he'd left them. Before the last hospital run, he used to joke that as long as those boots waited, he'd always come home. Now the same doorway framed a plan to erase me from it. Elaine appeared in the doorway, perfume sharp. "You're still here. Rachel's on her way." "I live here," I said quietly. She forced a smile. "Sweetheart, selling will give everyone closure. Your father wanted peace." "He wanted honesty," I answered. When she left, I took screenshots of everything. The messages, the file names, the timestamps. 3 years of caretaking had taught me how to document truth. A new text arrived from Rachel. "Don't overreact. We're helping you start fresh." I typed back, "By selling the only thing I have left, no reply." The clock above the stove ticked louder than usual. Outside, the porch light flickered the way it did whenever Dad brushed past it on his late walks. For the first time, the house felt smaller, like it already belonged to someone else. I opened the kitchen drawer where Dad kept his yellow legal pads. On the top sheet, in his square handwriting, one line read, "Emma decides timeline." My throat tightened. They could rewrite the will, twist the story, and call it family planning. But Dad's pen didn't lie. Another ping lit up the screen. Family Plan 2.0. Mark, once she moves out, we list it. Buyer locked for mid-June. I already found someone. I stared at that line until it blurred. Then I whispered to the empty kitchen, "Not yet, you won't." Rachel showed up the next morning like nothing was wrong, heels clicking across Dad's porch. She carried a latte in one hand and that effortless smile that used to charm teachers into forgiving her homework excuses. "Morning, Em. Can we talk?" I set my mug down. "Sure, about the group chat or the sale date." Her smile froze. "You weren't supposed to see that." "So it's true." "It's just planning," she said quickly. "Mark handles real estate stuff better than you do. Dad wanted efficiency. Dad wanted fairness." I slid the legal pad toward her. "Recognize his handwriting?" She barely glanced. "He probably wrote that before changing his mind. People get confused near the end." Something in me snapped. "You weren't here when he coughed blood at 2 a.m. Or when I begged him to eat soup. Don't you dare call him confused." Rachel exhaled through her nose like a manager handling a difficult employee. "Emma, you're emotional. The house is old. You don't earn enough to keep it. Let us sell it, split something small for you, and move on." "Split something small?" I repeated, laughing once, dry and sharp. She looked past me at the kitchen window. "I'm trying to avoid lawyers. That makes one of us." The room went silent except for the ticking clock. Then Elaine entered, clutching her phone. Girls, stop. This isn't what your father wanted. I turned to her. You mean the father whose will Mark helped amend? The one you kept in a folder labeled final_draft? Her eyes widened. Where did you? I found the email chain, Elaine. Dad never sent it. Mark did. Rachel's voice went brittle. You're digging through private stuff now? This is why we can't trust you with responsibility. Responsibility? I stepped closer. I paid his hospice bills while you toured Napa. Elaine grabbed Rachel's arm. Let's not do this here. But Rachel pulled free. No, she needs to hear it. Dad pitied you. He told Mark you'd never stand on your own. We're just cleaning up what you can't handle. Every word landed like a slap, but instead of breaking me, they sharpened something. I opened my phone, scrolled to the screenshots, and held the screen between us. Then explain why you wrote. Once she moves out, we list it. Seems less like pity and more like eviction. Rachel's jaw tightened. Delete that. Sure, I said, hitting send and forwarding the screenshots to my own email. Deleted from my phone, not from memory. Elaine whispered, Emma, think about your future. Family is all you have. I looked at the two women who shared my last name only on paper now. Then I guess I'm about to find a new one. Rachel's phone buzzed. She read the screen and smiled faintly. Too late anyway. Mark already found a buyer. Deposit scheduled next week. For a moment, everything slowed. The smell of lemon cleaner, the hum of the fridge, my pulse thudding behind my ribs. Dad's boots by the door looked like they were waiting for someone to finally defend the house they guarded for 40 years. I grabbed my coat. If you're selling this place, you'd better hope every signature is clean. Because I'm done being quiet. Rachel called after me, voice rising. Emma, you can't prove anything. I turned at the doorway. Then you shouldn't be so nervous. Outside, cold air bit my face. I didn't know yet where to start, but I knew who still had Dad's old laptop in the office upstairs. He never erased a file, and somewhere in those folders, the truth was waiting. By the next morning, I wasn't just excluded, I was erased. Rachel had quietly kicked me from every family group chat. When I tried calling, her number went straight to voicemail. Even Elaine's contact photo had vanished from my messages. By lunchtime, Mark had posted a smiling picture on Facebook. Grateful for family unity and new beginnings. A dozen mutual friends commented hearts. I scrolled past it until I saw one line buried in the thread, hope Emma's doing okay after everything. After everything, as if I were the problem they had overcome. I shut my phone, packed a single duffel, and left the farmhouse. The porch boards creaked beneath my shoes, a sound I used to find comforting. Now it felt like the house itself was sighing. I checked into a cheap month-to-month rental near downtown Columbus. Faded carpet, humming fridge, one lamp with a broken shade. The landlord, an older woman with purple glasses, handed me the keys. Quiet place, she said. No visitors after 10. Perfect. I didn't expect any. That night, I sat cross-legged on the floor beside Dad's old laptop. It was slow and full of pop-up warnings, but he had saved everything on it. I clicked through the folders until one caught my eye. Legal_drafts. Inside were dated versions of his will. Draft_1, Draft_2, and finally final. I opened Draft_2. The beneficiary line read Emma Reed. My heart knocked once, hard. In final, that line changed to Rachel Rothman. Same signature at the bottom. But the pressure marks were lighter, and the scanned date stamp was off by exactly 3 days. I zoomed in. The line edges looked smudged, almost retouched. I opened Dad's email archive. There was one outgoing message to his attorney, timestamped 9:47 p.m., 2 days before he died. I need to review Rachel's suggestion before signing anything new. He never got the chance. The next day, his oxygen dropped, and by morning, he was gone. My stomach twisted. I minimized the email, opened the documents folder, and saw an unfamiliar audio file, voice-note_0423.m4a. The playback crackled. Dad's voice, faint but clear. Rachel keeps insisting I sign before the weekend. Mark said he'd handle the paperwork. I just want Emma protected if I'm not around. Then a male voice, low and impatient. Sir, it's just procedure. You trust me, right? I froze. Mark. The file ended mid-sentence. My palms were slick against the laptop. I copied it to a flash drive immediately. Around midnight, a message popped up on my phone from an unknown number. You really should stop digging, Em. Let it go. No name, just that single line. My pulse jumped. I typed back, "Who is this?" But it bounced. Number unavailable. The next morning, my inbox was flooded with pitying messages from neighbors. Heard things got messy with the will. Stay strong, sweetie. Families fight after loss. Maybe don't make it worse by airing private stuff online. Someone was already spreading a narrative that I was unstable, bitter, ungrateful. Rachel had turned sympathy into PR. At the grocery store, a woman from church stopped me near the dairy aisle. Honey, Rachel told us you're taking some time off for stress. Bless your heart. I smiled tightly. Yeah, I'm taking time off. To think clearly. When I got home, I blocked every family contact. Silence filled the apartment like thick fog. I turned on the TV for noise, but kept the volume low, afraid the world might shrink even further if it got quiet enough. Later that week, I scrolled through old voicemails and found one I'd missed. The lawyer's office calling the day after Dad's funeral. The assistant said, "If you'd like copies of all previous drafts for your records, we can provide them upon request." I hadn't called back. Now I did. "Can I get every version my father signed or discussed?" I asked. The secretary hesitated. "Those were returned to his representative, Mr. Mark Rothman, last month. Representative, not executor." My jaw clenched. "Thank you," I said, forcing calm. "That helps more than you think." After hanging up, I sat at the tiny kitchen table, the flash drive in my palm. I had the recording, the drafts, and a text trail of their plans, but I had no allies, no access to Dad's lawyer, and no one who would believe me. Still, Dad used to say, "Truth doesn't need company, it just needs daylight." I stared at the flickering bulb above me and whispered, "Then daylight's what you'll get." I opened my laptop, attached the files, and drafted a short email. To myself, subject for record. Read estate anomalies. Before I hit send, another notification flashed. A new post from Rachel. Excited to start fresh, big family news coming soon. Attached was a photo of the farmhouse front porch with a sold sign leaning against the rail. My chest went cold. The deal wasn't pending anymore. It was done. And I wasn't finished. I didn't sleep the night that sold sign appeared. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Rachel's smiling caption. New beginnings. My beginnings were eviction papers. Hers were champagne flutes. By dawn, I stopped shaking. If they wanted public, I'd give them daylight. I opened my laptop and built a folder named Truth Read Estate. Inside, screenshots of the group chat, the altered will drafts, and Dad's voice note. Then I wrote a single post on Facebook. For anyone wondering why Dad's house suddenly sold, here's what family unity looks like when signatures don't match and voice memos don't lie. Transparency hurts, but silence kills truth. No names, no insults, just attached images and the audio waveform frozen at the moment Mark said, "You trust me, right?" Within an hour, the post had 50 shares. By noon, my phone buzzed nonstop. Half the town wanted gossip. The other half wanted answers. Under the thread, old neighbors chimed in. "Didn't Emma take care of him till the end?" Someone replied, "Rachel told us she handled the paperwork." Another voice wrote, "If that's true, the will's invalid." By afternoon, Rachel called. I let it ring. Then the texts came, long paragraphs that started with, "You've embarrassed us," and ended with, "Take it down, or we'll sue for defamation." I replied once, "Truth can't be defamed." Then I turned off my phone. That night, a message came from an unfamiliar account. "Hi, Emma. You don't know me, but I used to work with Mark at Denver and Cole Realty. He printed amendment paperwork here 2 months ago. Told us it was for a client's dying father." I saved the file name, readfinal.df. "I think you should have this." Attached was a scanned copy, metadata showing the file created from Mark's login at 11:42 p.m., the night Dad was in the hospital. I stared at the screen until tears blurred the lines. My breath came short. My hands shook. This was it. The missing proof. I saved the document, renamed it Evidence B, and forwarded it to a new contact. Alan Reese, Dad's longtime lawyer. He hadn't answered me before, but now I had leverage. Mr. Reese, please review attached materials. If this reaches probate court, I'll need your testimony regarding authenticity. I hit send. 10 minutes later, he replied, Emma, I suspected inconsistencies, but lacked permission to discuss them. Come to my office tomorrow, 9 a.m. Bring everything, quietly. Quietly? I almost laughed. Quiet had cost me everything. The next morning, I walked into the paneled office with the flash drive clutched tight. Alan looked older than I remembered. Tie loose, eyes careful. He plugged in the drive, listened to the recording, and frowned. This is Mark's voice, he said flatly. And that signature? Yes, it's traced from an earlier file. I'll prepare an affidavit. Relief surged, but it mixed with fury. Can we stop the sale? Technically, it's pending transfer. We can file an injunction, but we need the buyer's cooperation. Who's the buyer? I asked. Alan scrolled, then hesitated. A limited LLC, Rothman Investments. My stomach dropped. Mark's shell company. Alan nodded slowly. He's trying to buy it himself to flip later. I stepped back, air thinning around me. Rachel hadn't just betrayed me. She was covering for a husband stealing from our father's estate. I left the office shaking, but this time from determination. Outside, the gray sky looked ready to split. I opened my phone, turned it back on, and saw hundreds of notifications, comments, messages, shares. The story had gone local viral. A small news outlet had reposted my screenshots with the headline, Daughter accuses sibling of forging dying father's will. The reporter had written, Attempts to contact the Rothmans were unsuccessful. Underneath, someone named Jessica V commented, Mark bragged about getting that old man's signature. I was there. I clicked her profile. Jessica Vance, interior designer, mutual friend of Rachel's from college. My pulse kicked. I messaged instantly. Can we talk? She replied within minutes. Meet me at Bright Bean Cafe, 5 p.m. I'll bring what I have. At 5 sharp, Jessica arrived in a tan coat, eyes darting. She slid a flash drive across the table. Security footage from our office printer logs shows Mark scanning documents labeled Read Will. I copied it before he deleted it. Why help me? I asked. She sipped her coffee. Because he said ugly things about you afterward. Called you the sentimental liability. And because your father deserved better? I thanked her, tucked the drive into my bag, and exhaled for what felt like the first time in days. By the time I got home, my post had reached 4,000 shares. Rachel's profile was gone, deleted, but Mark's remained quiet. A message popped up from his account. You think you've won? You have no idea what you've started. I stared at those words, calm spreading through me like ice water. Then another notification appeared, this one from my bank. Alert, account access attempt blocked. Someone had tried to log in using my late father's social security number as verification. My hands tightened on the phone. If they couldn't silence me publicly, they were coming for my money next. The fraud alert froze me mid-step. Someone had just tried to break into my bank account using Dad's old social security number. That wasn't random. Only Rachel or Mark would know those details. I called the bank immediately. This is Emma Reed, I said. There's been an unauthorized attempt to access my account. The agent confirmed, yes, from a Denver IP address. They tried twice, both rejected. Denver, Mark's firm. Lock everything, I ordered. Freeze my savings until I verify in person. When the call ended, I stared at the ceiling fan spinning above me. It felt like I'd entered a chess game where every move was already anticipated. They weren't just trying to erase me from the will. They wanted to choke me financially too. I spent the next hours filing online fraud reports and scanning every credit card statement. 2 small transactions appeared under Rothman Consulting. Dates matched the week after Dad's funeral. Mark had somehow linked one of Dad's dormant accounts to mine. My phone rang again. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Emma, it's Rachel. Her voice was ragged. Please don't hang up. I didn't know he'd go this far. What did he do? There was a pause filled with shaky breathing. Mark's been taking loans in Dad's name for months. I just found the letters. He said it was temporary, that he'd repay once the house sold. But now, he's gone. Gone? He cleaned our joint account this morning. over $200,000. Left his work laptop, vanished before noon. His office says he resigned effective immediately. For a moment, I couldn't speak. So you're calling because… what? You finally realized you married a thief? Emma, I didn't. You pushed Dad to sign that fake will, Rachel. You let Mark handle everything. Now you want sympathy because he robbed you too. I know I deserve the hate, she whispered. But please. The police are asking questions. They think I helped. I need to prove I didn't. You forged a signature. You did help. I'll testify he faked it all if you help me, she said quickly. I'll sign whatever affidavit your lawyer needs. Just please. He has the insurance papers too. If he cashes them, it's gone forever. Insurance, Dad's policy, $300,000 meant for hospital bills that never got paid. My pulse quickened. Send me everything you have, I said. Emails, receipts, whatever. Rachel's sob cracked through the line. I'm so sorry, Em. Save it, I said, and hung up. Within 10 minutes, my inbox filled with forwarded emails, screenshots of transfer receipts, even a note Mark had left on their kitchen counter. Don't look for me, it's over. I scanned through the attachments, one catching my eye. An insurance portal login confirmation from 8:37 a.m., the same time as the bank alert. He was trying to cash out Dad's policy electronically. I grabbed my coat and rushed to Alan's office again. He looked up, startled. Emma? Mark's running with the insurance money. We have to stop him before he cashes it. Alan moved fast, calling the insurance representative directly. This is Attorney Reese. We're filing a fraud hold on policy 4081 Reed. Beneficiary change under investigation. He hung up, exhaled. They froze the claim. He can't touch it now. Relief came like a wave, followed immediately by exhaustion. So what happens next? Police involvement, Alan said. With the will forgery and now insurance fraud, he'll face felony charges. But you'll need to submit the original evidence and testimony. I will. As I stood to leave, my phone buzzed again. An email alert. New message from mark.rothman@privatebox.com. Subject line, you destroyed me. I opened it despite the warning in my gut. You think you've won because you froze one account? I still have leverage. Rachel isn't as innocent as she claims. Check the hospital invoices again. Some of those bills never existed. Who do you think signed them? I scrolled down. Attached were PDFs of falsified hospital receipts with Rachel's e-signature. My stomach dropped. If those went public, she'd be charged too. Another line appeared at the bottom. Meet me before I disappear for good. Tonight, 9 p.m., under the old train bridge. Bring your copies. Let's make a deal. I stared at the glowing screen, the cursor blinking like a dare. Alan frowned when I showed him. This could be a trap. Maybe, I said, but he's desperate, and desperate people confess. He hesitated. Then don't go alone. I nodded, though we both knew I'd already made up my mind. That night, as the sun dipped behind the warehouses, I drove toward the bridge, flash drive in my pocket, recorder in my bag, and one thought circling in my head. If Mark wanted a deal, I'd give him one. But it would be written in evidence, not mercy. The bridge looked abandoned. Rusted beams, flickering light, the sound of water below carrying cold air up the concrete pillars. I parked under a half-dead street lamp, pulse steady in that strange way it gets before battle. Mark stood by the railing, hood up, cigarette glowing. When he saw me, he grinned. You actually came. I figured you'd want an audience for your final performance. He laughed softly. You've ruined my life, Emma. The firm dropped me, Rachel's hysterical, the cops are circling. So let's talk redemption. Redemption isn't something you negotiate. Then call it leverage. He tossed a folder onto the railing. Those fake hospital bills? Rachel's signature. If I disappear, those go public, and she goes down with me. You forged Dad's will, stole his insurance, and now you're blackmailing your own wife? He shrugged. Everybody's dirty. You just hide it better. I kept my voice calm. Let's make sure history remembers who did what. I pulled a small recorder from my coat pocket and clicked it on. Tell me again how you changed Dad's will. Mark smirked. You think I'm stupid? I think you love hearing yourself talk. He stepped closer, breath heavy with smoke. I didn't change it. I perfected it. Your old man didn't know what he wanted, so I helped him decide. Rachel cried. He signed. Easy. And the insurance? He snorted. Finder's fee. You'd be surprised what a dying man leaves lying around. Every word recorded crisp in the night air. I pressed further. So the will was traced, not signed? Of course it was traced. He could barely hold a pen. He grinned wider. Now delete that little crusade post. Give me the originals, and maybe I let your sister breathe. I tilted my head. Funny thing, Mark. You already let her drown. From behind us, headlights flared. A black sedan rolled into the clearing. Alan Reese stepped out with two officers. The recorder's red light blinked in his hand. He'd been listening through the phone I'd kept in my pocket on speaker. Mark froze. What the? End of performance, I said. Your confession's been recorded and witnessed. The officers moved fast, cuffing him before he could bolt. He shouted my name, voice echoing off steel. You set me up! I met his glare evenly. No, Mark. You set yourself up the day you forged a dying man's name. They dragged him toward the car. One officer read the charges: fraud, forgery, identity theft, insurance embezzlement. Alan handed me the recorder, eyes tired but satisfied. That's enough to bury him legally. Good work. Rachel appeared then, stepping out of her own car parked behind the police cruiser. Tear-streaked, pale. She looked smaller than I remembered. I didn't know you'd call the police tonight. I didn't, I said quietly. They called me. Turns out when you file federal fraud reports, people start listening. She nodded, trembling. I signed those bills, Emma. He said they were just duplicates for the insurance. I swear I didn't know. I believe you, I said. But believing doesn't erase consequences. Her eyes filled again. What happens now? You cooperate with Alan, sign the affidavit, and maybe you keep your license. Mark screamed from the cruiser. You'll regret this, Emma. I turned to him. Regrets your department. When the taillights disappeared, silence settled under the bridge, except for river water lapping against stone. Rachel sank onto the curb, shaking. I ruined everything. No, I said, exhaling slow. You helped build a lie. I just pulled the curtain. For the first time in weeks, the night air didn't feel suffocating. I looked up at the dark sky, the same color Dad used to call honest gray. Rachel wiped her eyes. Are we done hating each other? I hesitated. Tonight, maybe. Tomorrow, I'll decide. A police officer approached. Miss Reed, we'll need a formal statement first thing in the morning. I'll be there, I said. As they drove off, Rachel stood, voice hoarse. Thank you for not letting him get away. I met her gaze. I didn't do it for you. I did it for Dad. Then I turned toward my car, the flash of red and blue fading in the mirror, and whispered to myself, and for me. But I wasn't free yet. Mark's mess would ripple through everything he'd touched, and by morning, the world would know who really forged the name of a dying man. The next morning, the bridge scene was already all over local news. Business partner arrested in forged will case. They used Mark's mugshot, unkempt, eyes hollow, the confidence stripped away. Underneath, a smaller headline read, Family conflict at heart of estate scandal. I turned off the TV and stared at the sunlight spilling through my blinds. For the first time in months, it didn't feel accusatory. It just felt like day. Alan called at 9. The district attorney's office confirmed they'll prosecute. He said, your father's assets will revert to the original draft. Your name is restored as sole heir. I exhaled. Thank you, Alan. Really? He paused. You did most of the work. Your father would be proud. After the call, I drove back to the farmhouse. Police tape fluttered near the porch. Temporary, more symbolic than necessary. Rachel's car was already there. She sat on the steps, wearing one of Dad's old flannels. When she saw me, she stood quickly. I wasn't sure you'd come. I almost didn't, I admitted. She rubbed her hands together, voice thin. They released me after questioning. I signed the affidavit. Alan said cooperating means probation, not prison. Good, I said quietly. She looked around the yard. Do you hate me? I thought about it. The easy answer was yes, but the truth was more complicated. Tired, heavy, and human. I hate what you did, not who you are. There's a difference. Tears welled again. I thought Mark loved us. I believed him when he said you couldn't handle the house. I wanted to keep peace. You kept silence, I corrected. Peace without honesty is just denial with pretty curtains. She nodded slowly, as if each word landed exactly where it should. If you want me gone, I'll pack today. I shook my head. I'm not throwing you out, but this place isn't ours anymore. Not the way it was. I need space to rebuild what's left of Dad's name. And my own. Rachel wiped her face with her sleeve. Will you ever forgive me? Forgiveness isn't a switch, I said. It's a slow untying of knots. Maybe someday, but not today. We walked inside together anyway. Dust hung in the sunlight like suspended memories. On the kitchen counter sat Dad's old coffee mug. World's okayest farmer. I picked it up, tracing the crack along its rim. I used to think family meant keeping everything together no matter how wrong it was, I said. Now I think it means telling the truth, even if it breaks what's fake. Rachel leaned against the doorway. You sound like him. I hope so. We spent the afternoon boxing old medical files and photo albums. She packed quietly, leaving small notes on each box, high school yearbooks, Dad's tools. The silence between us was different now, less icy, more respectful. As dusk settled, Rachel paused at the door. What happens to the insurance money? Return to the estate, I said. It'll go to cover the hospital debts and local hospice fund. That's what Dad wanted. She nodded. That's fair. Before she left, she turned once more. If you ever need help fixing the roof or painting, I'll call a professional, I said, but with a small smile. When her car disappeared down the road, I stood on the porch alone. The fields stretched golden under the fading sun, quiet except for crickets and the distant hum of a tractor from a neighboring farm. For the first time, the house didn't feel haunted by betrayal. It just felt empty, waiting for new breath. I walked back inside, sat at the kitchen table, and wrote a single line in Dad's yellow pad. Truth restored itself today. I set the pen down, knowing the next page would belong only to me, but rebuilding wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something I hadn't felt in years, freedom that didn't depend on anyone's approval. Tomorrow, I'd decide what to do with the farmhouse. Tonight, I'd let myself simply exist. A month later, the farmhouse smelled like dust, coffee, and fresh paint. The for sale sign was gone, not replaced by another, just gone. I hadn't decided yet whether to stay or move, only that the choice was finally mine. Morning sunlight spilled across the kitchen, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a guest in my own life. I donated Dad's old tools to the local high school, boxed up his clothes for veterans' families, and kept only one thing, his yellow legal pad. The last page still read in his careful handwriting, Emma decides timeline. I whispered, I'm finally doing that, Dad. The investigation wrapped fast. Mark pleaded guilty to forgery and fraud, sentenced to 5 years, Rachel testified, and the DA credited her cooperation. She moved back to Chicago quietly, no social media, no announcements. Alan stopped by one afternoon with the final estate papers. All yours, he said, setting them on the table. No one can touch it now. I smiled. Not even ghosts? He chuckled. Especially not ghosts. After he left, I sat by the window, sipping coffee from Dad's cracked mug. Outside, wildflowers had grown through the gravel driveway, stubborn and bright. They didn't care who had owned the soil before. They just bloomed because they could. Maybe healing was like that. Messy, persistent, refusing permission. Rachel sent a letter 2 weeks later. No apologies this time. Just honesty. You were right. I confuse silence with love. I'm learning the difference now. Thank you for making me face it. I read it once, folded it, and placed it in a drawer. Not because I forgave her yet, but because I wanted to remember what accountability looked like in handwriting. That weekend, I drove to Columbus to visit the university's Career Center. I'd been offered a part-time position teaching financial literacy. Ironic, maybe, considering how badly my own family had handled money. But when I stood in that classroom for the first time, watching students take notes as I explained what power of attorney meant, I realized I wasn't teaching numbers. I was teaching protection. the kind I wished I'd had sooner. After class, a young woman lingered by the door. Miss Reed, I saw your story online, she said shyly. You made me call my grandma to check her will. I smiled. Good. Always read the fine print, especially when love's involved. Driving home, the sky opened into that soft orange Dad used to call closing hour light. The fields shimmered, the same way they had the day of his funeral, except now they didn't hurt to look at. When I pulled into the driveway, I didn't see the house as a battlefield anymore. It was just a place where truth had finally spoken loud enough. I poured a cup of tea, sat on the porch swing, and opened the pad one last time. Beneath Dad's handwriting, I added my own line, truth restored, self-chosen. The porch light flickered on, still crooked, still squeaky, and I laughed softly. I'd spent so long trying to fix what was broken that I'd forgotten. Some flaws don't need repair, they just need acceptance. I wasn't the same woman who once begged to be included in a family chat. I was someone who'd learned that peace comes not from being believed, but from believing yourself. So when people later asked how I got through it, I always said the same thing. You don't wait for an apology that may never come. You build a life that doesn't need one. The night deepened around me, calm and quiet. Somewhere, a cricket started its song. I took a deep breath, feeling every piece of the world settle back into place. Crooked light, cracked mug, and a heart that finally belonged to no one but me. Because in the end, I didn't just win back a house. I reclaimed my name, my worth, and my peace. And that's all I ever needed. If you've listened this far, thank you. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my place? And don't forget to drop your story and subscribe Big Sister Revenge Stories. Yes, sir. And Dutch. Because stories like mine deserve to be heard.